Hi, and welcome to the Quick and Dirty Romance Podcast. We're your hosts, romance authors and bicoastal friends for life. I'm Skye McDonald, author of the Anti-Bell series and the Connecticut Commodores Hockey Romance series.
And I'm Sarah Smith, author of No Freaking Way.
And together we are Sarah Skye, author of the best-selling Unlikely Pairings series.
Each episode, we'll dive deep into what it's like to be a contemporary romance author. We'll talk writing inspiration, give you the inside scoop about the publishing world, chat about how we write those infamous sex scenes, and more. And then we'll pull out and wrap it up in 30 minutes or less, but we promise to leave you satisfied.
Now, if you haven't already read our books, be sure to check them out after you listen to this podcast and DM us with any questions or requests for future episodes you might have. And this is another Quick and Dirty with Friends episode. We're excited to welcome Lori Matthews to the show. Lori grew up in a house filled with books and readers. She was introduced to different genres because of her parents' habit of leaving books all over the house. Her mother read romance and her father read thrillers. Her love of reading and books led to her becoming a librarian. She started her career as a public librarian and then eventually made her way into schools as a high school librarian with a stop in the corporate world along the way. When her children went off to school, she finally had the time to pursue her first love, writing, and she's been pounding the keyboard ever since. Lori has won numerous awards and currently lives in New Jersey with her husband, 2 children, crazy dog, and grumpy cats.
Welcome, Lori. We're so excited to have you. And this is a really interesting topic that Skye and I both have strong thoughts on for today's episode. We are discussing the art of giving readers what they want while still staying true to your own ideals and ethics. So let's dive right in.
Well, thank you for having me. It's so good to be here. And, I always love chatting with Skye. We've known each other a while. This is a topic that actually I've grappled a lot with this year. I write romantic suspense, romantic thrillers, and the big push towards dark romance has happened. And I struggled with that because I have thoughts on a lot of it that I know. And actually, I was speaking to Sadie Kincaid at one point, and she is like the queen of dark mafia romance. And we had this great conversation that really opened up my eyes to a couple of things. As she put it, everybody has a line in the sand. And I think that's the big thing that's going on right now. Well, everybody's figuring out where their line is, right? You want to be true to, like, I certainly want to write the way I want to write. And I want to be true to myself and true to the romantic suspense, romantic thriller crowd that I've developed, the following, and make sure that they get what they want. But I also, to attract some new people, you start thinking, should I go outside the box a little more? Should I do some more things? And so that has been a real challenge for me this year in trying to figure out where my lines were.
Your hard limits, if you will.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so fascinated by this topic. And first and foremost, I think that is an important thing. Everybody has their lines. I think that the curious thing about that point and the reality of it is we think we have lines in one place, and then when actually put into practice, and I'm generally talking more about like real life, but like in terms of like what you will take from a relationship, or what you like, the line that you think you're going to like, until you get to that line, you don't often know if that line is very firm, but then you know when it is, or you realize you got to walk way back, right? And I mean, I'm talking about lived experiences where I'm like, oh, I'd never put up with blah blah blah, and then you put up with blah blah blah, so it's a learning life lesson as well as a lesson for both readers and authors. What I don't know, I have things that I won't write into a book, regardless of my real lived experiences or personal opinions on them. What are some things, like if you're looking to like open, especially in like the thriller, what are some lines that you find a little blurry maybe, or things that you thought you were going to be one position on and you may have changed that mind a little bit, or maybe maybe reconsidering?
So when I started, I think I was a little less graphic with not only sex scenes, because I think they were still pretty steamy, but I think I was a little less graphic with the violence. Now, as time has gone on, I've started writing more actual deaths into it, you know, in the beginning it was more adventure-y, and now it's a little darker, a few more deaths and things. And I never thought I would kind of go in that way, but I'm really enjoying, because that opens up so many more avenues, you know, when you start getting down that. So I think it's, for me, it's been going a little darker in that way that I hadn't anticipated doing. I had always thought sort of more suspense adventure, and now I'm into like thriller, you know, murder and those
Hard
types of things
crime.
a little bit more. Yeah, which is interesting to write and gives you sort of a different spin on things.
Intriguing. Sarah and I neither write crime or thriller. I love a thriller. I love a good thriller book. It's actually my preferred reading genre, especially when I'm writing romance. I need something that's outside of it. So that's super interesting to me. So steaminess, but then also violence. Those are your blurred lines.
And so my latest series, the Lock and Key series, it's actually bad guys that are good is sort of the idea. Guys that are cross the line, but cross the line for the right reason. So it's super interesting to write that. Like, it's a lot of fun, and it brings in more elements of sort of the bad boy thing, but also where the heroine has to make the choice, right? Like, is this acceptable or not? At some point, they all face the choice of, can I actually love this person, even though they're not what I would have said a good guy? You know what I mean? Like, oh, he's a great guy. He's really not in so many ways, right? Like, he's really not. He's done all kinds of things. So you wouldn't actually call him a great guy in that sort of setting. So then it's fun to play with. Can they accept that, and how they come about accepting it? Like, what's the thing that happens that makes them go, okay, you know what, I can deal with this, or no, I can't, or, you know. So it's a lot of fun to play with that more. And it also, for me, has expanded my heroines in a sense, because for them, I always make my the two protagonists have to be equal, right? Toe to toe on everything. So it also allows me to darken them a little bit and spice them up a little bit in different ways, and let them do things that maybe I wouldn't have thought to do. I mean, in one of my books, she climbs through a dog door. Like, it's hilarious to me, because and slides away and does all this stuff. And I'm thinking, I probably never would have come up with that before. But because now we're spinning it in a darker way, and there's so many more things going on, I can be a little freer with what they all do.
What do you
That's
think,
really
Sarah?
interesting. Yeah, sorry. I think that that's a really interesting way to, because I think, like, the whole point of us being writers and authors is, one, we enjoy the act of writing and telling stories, but also we enjoy connecting with readers and hopefully writing stories that they want to read. So when you realize, or when things start to change, like you say, and readers are wanting something a little bit different from what you have written up to this point, trying to figure out a way to incorporate what they want, but like kind of on your terms, in a way that like you feel good about and that you enjoy. Because, you know, because I think we can all think of like subgenres or tropes that like are really, really popular, but like we personally just don't want to write, or we wouldn't feel comfortable writing. So we're not going to write those ones. But we also want to write what readers want to read. So Lori, you mentioned your the series, or the series that you work on, where like the guys, the male main character, aren't necessarily good guys, but they're bad, but like there's a reason for why they're bad. And it sounds like there's a line, like they're not like firebombing animal shelters, right? Like they're not doing
No.
horrible things like that, you know, because that's a line that I don't think anybody would want to cross. But like, you know, they're not the goody two shoes, squeaky clean accountant who, you know.
Exactly. I call them monster wranglers.
Ah, okay. Nice.
So
Yeah.
they're the monster wranglers. In order to be a monster wrangler, you have to understand the monster, is sort of the premise of it. It's part of a secret society, and there's all this stuff that goes on, but that sort of, the idea is that they're the monster wranglers. And so, yeah, they're not the accountant. They are, you know, they're willing to kill people and do all this stuff, but they do it to wrangle the worst monsters.
Right. And I think that that's kind of a cool way to approach giving readers what they want, but not like crossing a line for yourself. Yeah, Skye,
There's
what are
always
your
the
thoughts?
I have been thinking and speaking to people recently actually at Denver about the idea about the depiction of the hero in a story and the toxic hero, right? The toxic hero has become very prolific now. It's very popular. And I think that there is an art of writing your anti-hero or your outlaw, right? I mean, if we just go to archetypes, outlaw, extremely appealing, always has been extremely appealing, right? You like the guy who goes against the grain, who isn't the accountant, right? Go back to I mean, look at Humphrey Bogart. He wasn't a nice guy. He most often did not depict a nice man, but he was very, very attractive for that reason. Like a lot of your leading men and a lot of your leading, most iconic roles, Rhett Butler, right? Not a nice man, but a fundamentally good person and not going to burn the life down of the person they love, right? And I like, not to say that I mean, I'm not here to tear apart people who are writing toxic, Stockholm syndrome or anything like that. That's their choice. Like, and to read that, like, it's part of the genre, right? Go for it. But for me, I want to see a man who he's an outlaw. Like if we're looking at an outlaw, we're still looking at somebody who knows their code. Okay. And I think that that is an important, like, artful element, right? Like even Jack Sparrow, there's a code, right? There's the code of what you will accept and what you will not. And, I think depictions of characters in that way, like whether their code is against society's code, is not particularly important, but it is that they have one, right? So for your monster wranglers, like, this isn't
Agreed.
what nice boys would do, right? We're not sitting behind a desk right now. We got to get our hands dirty, but we know what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I think that that's an interesting, like, way that you can absolutely depict like your bad boy without going into, like, this isn't healthy. I don't know.
Right, or like a toxic or abusive type
Mm-hmm.
situation.
Agreed. I love this idea, like the code. You're right. And that's how I write them. They have it literally, there is a rule book that they have to follow.
Mhm.
And they're not allowed to do, even if they think it's the worst thing, they can't do it. They really want to get this guy or whatever. They can't do it if he doesn't break the rules. Like there's a whole code that they have to live by.
Mhm.
But I agree in general. I'm starting actually a brand new super secret project with a pile of other authors, and it is dark. It's a dark thing, but you know me, I can't write dark in that same way. So it's going to be the light is dark, sort of, in a sense, because I can do some with the hero, but there's so many lines that I just can't cross because that's not how I want, especially my female protagonist, to be portrayed. I don't want her to be in that negative space. So for me, it's dark, and he's probably going to be, quite possessive and all those things to a point, but she's also going to be tougher and smarter and stronger and faster and all those things to balance it, because I came from the generation, I mean, we're still fighting like in everyday life for equality in all kinds of ways. I just can't write that. For me personally, I just can't write that she's too subservient. Like it just makes my teeth itch type thing. Like every once in a while somebody says, oh, you should do this. I'm like, I can't. So it's a fun project because for me, it actually really makes me find my lines. Like, yes, I can do this. No, I can't do that. And there are a lot of things I didn't realize, but when it comes to like, oh, you can do one of these scenes, I can't.
Interesting.
It's just not going to happen that way because that's not something I can put on paper. Like for me, it's just not something. And so I can give my readers the taste, but I can't give them the whole cake if that's what they're after, right? So so I'm hoping to find those readers that will enjoy what I can provide and give them a window into it, but without, like, if they're looking for the hardcore, I'm just not going to be their person because I can't do that. So there's always that balance, right? Of how far can you go and what are you comfortable with? And this is really great because this has really made me find my lines more and figure out what can I do and what works for me. And I'm realizing that it's, I can't really go that dark because it's just not something I'm comfortable putting on paper and having people read in that way. So it's fascinating.
It is fascinating. And I think that to your point, that we cannot, what is that old phrase? There's a reason that Baskin Robbins has 31 flavors. Like, not everybody wants vanilla, not everybody wants Rocky Road. And
Exactly.
it is the rare author, maybe even no author, that everyone has read, right? Like, there are some very, very famous authors who I've never read a single page of theirs. I know their stories. I've probably seen the movies, but I've never read it. I never read Twilight. I never saw the movies, but right. So like, but so even for the most universally known, I also didn't read Harry Potter, but that's a whole other thing. But just saying, like, to the point of, there is a reason so many authors are in this genre. There is a reason that so many subgenres are in this genre. And I think the knowing of, this is what I can give you and this is what I will be giving you, right? This is my corner of bookstagram, my corner of whatever you want to call it. Like, this is my corner of romance, right? And like, playing with, and certainly not being afraid to color into new lines that you didn't know you wanted to go into, is part of your own exploration as an author, as a person, but also not pretending like you will give the most unhinged or the most squeaky clean. Because on the other side of this, like Sarah and I have talked about this before, I'm not really interested in writing what they call sweet romance, no sex romance, right? I enjoy my spicy scenes. And it's not really like, it's just not very interesting to me, the idea of going into that subgenre. Is like a complete opposite, but the same example, right? Like, because some of my reviews have said things like, well, there's a lot of sex in this book. And I'm like, yeah, so in the same way, like, you're not going to go, there are things that I can't depict a person doing. There are scenes that there's darkness that I won't depict. There's also like my lane and I'm going to stay in it. But at the same time, to your also point, the difference between keeping your finger on like the pulse of what readers want, because it isn't just about, well, this is the story I want to tell, right? Like, there's the story you want to tell coupled with the things that people want to read, and finding that middle ground, I mean, is a constant journey, right? And it's always shifting. But I think that being open to the fluidity of it is what really creates a writer who can kind of keep their audience and keep them moving, even if their audience is wanting to dabble in other things as well.
It's true. And I to your point, I have also looked at sweet and thought, it's just not something I could put together because I don't, to me, it's all, what I write is quite honestly almost plot driven, a lot of it. So it's really hard to make that in a sweet kind of a way that still has the grit that I'd like to put in it. So again, you're right. It's amazing. The more I write, the more lines I find, which is, I never really thought about, but I am finding more, like, as you say, you kind of say, oh, I'm going to lop off that because that's just not something I can do, but I could do this over here or whatever. And I think part of it, to your point, the saying, there's a book for every reader and a reader for every book, and the art is finding them. And really that's what it's about, right? You're finding who likes your stuff, that you can keep doing what's true to you, but still giving a taste or getting involved in other areas that may be, like you say, like the market has shifted this way or the market shifted that way. I mean, it is also a business. So you do have to, at some point, say, okay, it's a business. How far can I go in this direction if that's the direction everyone's going? And again, it's finding your own personal lines of, okay, I can go to here, but I can't go any further, or I can't do that, but I can do this.
What's a topic, not necessarily a subgenre, that you're like, I know it's popular, but I have no interest in that?
I can't do any of the taboo stuff and whatever, which I know is like, I can't even read the blurbs on those. I'm just so far like, no, that's not me. So I think that, and there's a lot of in the sweet world, like, I'm not really good with the whole Christian side of things, because then I think it's hard to do that well. For me, I think it's
Inspirational.
hard to, yes. Yeah, I think inspirational, it's hard to do well, where it's not, for me, it comes off a little heavy. So I always feel like those are the things that I stay away from, because they're just not something I would engage well with. But that's not to say there aren't some really well written
Right. Of
books in
course.
each of those. It's
Absolutely.
just not, like, again, I'm just not their reader.
Sarah, topics that you, because I know we've both been dabbling in hockey lately. So that was one that you weren't
Yeah.
sure you were going to go into, and here you are. But is there a topic that you
Woo,
find
hockey!
like,
Yeah.
I know, right?
This Canadian girl's all excited.
Oh,
Yes.
really? Okay. That's so sweet. I'm really happy to hear that, because I'm the most like non-sports person you've ever met. Like, I don't care about any sport, and it's not for any bad reason. It's just like, I just didn't care about it. And plus, my brothers played a lot of sports when I was a kid, and my mom would always like make me go to their games.
Oh,
And like,
God.
and I was just like, this is the worst. I hate all of this. I don't care about any of this. Why is this game taking like 9 hours long? So I never thought I would write a sports romance, but then hockey romance kind of took off a little while ago, and I started reading them. I'm like, this is actually really fun. And my brothers didn't play hockey, so they haven't tainted the experience of that by me like having to go sit,
Yeah.
when I was like a kid and just watch games I didn't care about. So yeah, that's definitely a subgenre that I never thought that I would write, but I currently am, and I'm having a good time with it. But it's not like there's nothing taboo about hockey romance. It's just like sports, and I just didn't care
Yeah.
about sports. Yeah, I don't. So for me, and I didn't know this until like a year or a year and a half ago, there's like a serial killer like serial killer dark romance subgenre.
Yeah.
And I've read excerpts, and I just can't, like, I mean, that's probably not super surprising that I wouldn't want to write something like that. But I just can't, like, that's too dark for
Too
me.
far. Yeah, too dark.
Yeah,
I get
too
that.
far.
There are
Yeah.
just certain things that you go,
Yeah.
it's the bridge too far for me. I can't do it. I
Right.
agree.
Yeah.
I have a lot of those, and I'm finding out that they're not as far as I thought they would be. So I'm like, oh no, can't do it.
Understand.
Yeah.
I
How about you,
understand.
Sky? Do you have a line? Or like, do you have a no, I would never. Well, it's hard to say never though, because there's a
Right.
lot
You
of
know
things,
me. Yeah. I don't okay, so I don't envision myself doing any kind of shapeshifter.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
not it like I don't find it like it can be really cool. Like I read Steph's shapeshifter, our friend Steph Simpson does it great. I know a lot of people do it amazingly, but like in terms of things that I would get, I'm like, oh, I want to write that. That is, I don't have the vision of what somebody would change into that I'm like, this is hot in my, like, from my point of view. So that, and also to your point about serial killers, any kind of like stalker kind of makes me uncomfortable, only because I've known people who have had that like in real life. So and as you know, I've said this before, but like I cannot write a teacher-student relationship. That is a hard line for me. You were a
no.
librarian, you understand. I was a teacher. I loved my students and was like a mother hen to them, and the dynamic, and I get you can do it in college, and I get that it can be cool. And I have like, again, there are ways that it works that I'm like, that's good for you. But to me, a teacher is a mentor, and there's like it just does not work for me. It just does not work for me. So that would not be something to
Agreed.
find.
Big line in the sand there. I know, I feel the same way. There's just certain things that, and that's one of them, I just can't. Like you say, there's a line there for a reason,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a line that shouldn't be bridged.
Yeah, I agree. That's one that I'm just not comfortable with. There were too many incidences in the news when I was teaching, and it just makes me feel very sad. And I mean, it continues today, and the abuse of power that is like, and again, you can write it rom-com amazing, right? Like, again, like all of this is just our own, and we say that so many times because it's an analysis, not a tear down, right? And there are ways
Right.
that can be done that's
Agreed.
super comfortable, but not for me. You wouldn't find that for me. So yeah, this is interesting because it is, like you said, Lori, this is a business, right? And as fun as it is to create romance and think, how are we going to put these guys together, these people together, and to do this and to connect with readers, which I know is a really fundamentally like satisfying thing. You want to connect with your readers, you want to give them something that is going to light them up, but you also want to give them something that is going to light them up because it lit you up, you know? And I think that that's an important line to walk. So this has been very, very interesting. And this has been great.
But I
It's
think,
true.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
oh,
Sarah,
sorry, I
sorry.
was just,
Sorry.
oh,
I was
sorry,
just-
I was just, no. I just wanted to say, it's cool to see, like, in talking to you, Lori, that like, to see like the evolution of writers and authors. Like, you can start out thinking that you're gonna just do this, and then something changes, and you have to change with it if you want to like keep your readership, or if you want to like gain even more readers. But it's not necessarily a bad thing to keep yourself open to other tropes and stories and possibilities, because I think that shows just how wide your reach can be as an author, and how many more readers you can connect with if you're willing to be flexible about certain things, not all things, obviously. And you've had a lot of really good success with that. And I think that that's really inspiring to see as an author and writer, to know that like when things change, it might be a little bit daunting at first, but it can be really rewarding when you're at the other end of it and you see how many more readers that you've connected with, and that how many more stories you're capable of writing, and how your skills as an author have expanded. So I think that's really, really, really cool to see that in talking to you.
Thanks. You know what I think? It has to be interesting, right? And I think the chance, and I know you guys are like me, where at a certain point you want to grow. You can't just write the same book. You've got to write something different and grow. And I think this is how we expand as authors, right? We try something new and see if it works, and how we feel about it, and even how we can make it work, right? Like that's the challenge. And I think that's what makes the good writers, because we sit there and we change up, and we don't just write the same book again, again, again. We're trying different things. We're trying, even if readers don't notice it, I know I'm trying different things. So I think that that is a big part of being a writer, right? We all do these things. And whether anybody notices or not, it's like great for me. I'm all like, yay, this one worked well, or oh, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah,
So I think that's just part of the whole process that makes it more fun.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I apologize. I almost finished too early, guys. Sorry about that. Oh, talking about all these hard limits. It's so interesting, but this has been great for me. Was it good for you ladies?
Hell yes, it was excellent for me.
And
Good.
me too. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like what you hear, please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. Then go read all of our books. You can find out more about Lori on her website, lorimatthewsbooks.com. She is also on Instagram, Threads, and Facebook at Lori Matthews Books. As for Sarah and me, you will find us on Instagram at author Sarah Skye. I am on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at author Skye McDonald.
And you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. I'm at author Sarah S. We love to hear from you, so reach out and DM us with any questions or requests for future episodes.
Lori, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you guys. This has been so much fun.
Wonderful. All right, guys, we'll see you soon. Bye.